Welcome, team. I am absolutely thrilled to have you all here today. Look, we've all done it. You ask an AI a question, it spits back an answer that sounds incredibly confident, and you just kind of trust it, right? Well, if you've ever found yourself doing that, you're definitely going to want to pay close attention to this explainer. Today, we're setting the stage for a critical masterclass on how we need to operate as professionals in this crazy new age of generative AI. We're focusing entirely on calibrating our professional judgment to mitigate the very real, very hidden risks that AI poses to our research and analysis. As senior consultants, we are literally paid for our rigorous, unassailable insights. But if we lean on AI without a solid playbook, we risk compromising that entire foundation. So, grab your notes, get comfortable, and let's get into it. Okay, I want to start by completely crushing a massive rookie mistake right out of the gate. It's this idea that AI is objective simply because it's computational. I mean, it sounds super logical, right? A computer does math, math is objective, therefore the computer has to be objective. Well, actually, scratch that. It is completely false. Algorithms are computational, sure, but they are absolutely not objective. I want you to think of AI not as some impartial truth teller, but essentially as a lightning-fast filing cabinet of our own historical mistakes and human biases. It learns patterns from messy, completely non-representative real-world training data, and then it just stubbornly applies those exact same patterns over and over. The sheer speed and the confident formatting give us this false sense of authority. But remember, computational does not mean unbiased. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today's coaching session. We're going to cover the objectivity illusion, how bias enters the chat, real-world professional risks, who gets left behind, your bias mitigation checklist, and finally, transparency as scientific rigor. So you'll know exactly what framework you're walking away with today.
All right, Section 1, how bias enters the chat. Let's look at the actual mechanics of how this happens. Let's make sure the whole team is on the exact same page with a crystal clear working definition before we move any further. AI bias happens when an AI system produces systematically different results for different groups because it learns patterns from non-representative real-world training data. You've got to remember, the system isn't intentionally prejudiced. It doesn't have a secret agenda, and it definitely doesn't have a mind of its own. It's literally just pattern matching at a massive scale. It's essentially a very, very sophisticated parrot. But if the data it's mimicking is skewed right from the start, the output is going to systematically favor one group over another, which creates massive blind spots in your final client deliverables.
So how does this bias actually sneak into the machine? There are basically three main ways. First up is training data bias. If the internet text or the historical literature the AI trained on overrepresents, say, wealthy Western countries, which, let's be honest, it usually does, the AI is going to naturally skew its answers toward that specific demographic. Second is annotation bias. Real humans actually have to sit down and label this training data, and those human experts bring their own subjective, lived biases to the table, which the AI simply absorbs as undeniable fact. And third, this one is huge, algorithmic design bias. AI algorithms generally optimize for overall accuracy. This means they are perfectly happy completely sacrificing accuracy for a minority subgroup if it makes the tool look more accurate for the majority. It's a mathematical shortcut, but it has very real-world consequences.
And this brilliantly illustrates the point with some hard numbers. Imagine a medical imaging model built to detect anomalies, but its training data is made up of 80% light-skinned patients and only 20% dark-skinned patients. Because the algorithm's math is actively optimizing for that 80% majority just to boast a high overall success rate, it is naturally going to perform significantly worse on the 20% demographic. It has simply seen fewer examples. It literally doesn't know what to look for. It's a concrete numbers game. If your consulting task involves that 20%, relying blindly on the AI isn't just a simple little mistake, it is flat-out professional negligence. The machine is mathematically designed to serve the majority. Which brings us to Section 2, real-world professional risks. Let's look at the actual evidence of how this breaks down in our daily workflows. Let's say you're using an AI to synthesize literature on stroke outcomes, trying to figure out what predicts a really good recovery. Well, historically, stroke research is heavily skewed toward white males who simply have had higher rates of research participation and better access to legacy medical institutions. Look at these numbers. They often make up 80 to 90% of the study participants in the foundational literature. So, if you ask an AI to summarize that literature, its summary will heavily skew toward findings relevant only to that specific demographic. And here's the kicker. The AI is not going to tap you on the shoulder and offer you that context unless you explicitly force it to. It will just confidently present the white male experience as the universal human experience. But wait, it gets trickier. Beyond just skewed data, we also face the reality of the filter bubble. When you use AI literature search tools like Semantic Scholar or Elicit, they rank results by algorithmic relevance. Papers that are similar to what you initially searched for just keep ranking higher and higher. This feedback loop is exactly where catastrophic hallucinations happen. I literally just saw a junior consultant get burned by this. The AI confidently fabricated an entire peer review paper. I mean, we're talking fake authors, a convincing abstract, completely fabricated statistics, and a totally made-up DOI link, all just to eagerly please the user and perfectly match their initial assumptions. Even when the tool is technically accurate, it naturally buries less cited research from underrepresented communities. Relying on these tools without a healthy dose of skepticism simply amplifies existing publication biases. We also have to be hyper-aware of outcome measurement bias. Consider a research search for depression in men. You, as the consultant, might be looking for broad functional life impacts. Maybe you want to know how it affects remote work performance, daily energy levels, or family relationships. But historically, men's depression is heavily and disproportionately studied in the clinical context of suicide. Because the AI pattern matches what has been studied most frequently in the past, it will algorithmically hyperfixate on those suicide contexts and completely bury everything else. Your entire research question ends up being hijacked by the AI's limited historical perspective, completely changing the trajectory of your client project.
Moving on to Section 3. Who exactly gets left behind in all of this?
The populations getting systematically left behind are, predictably, those who are already underrepresented in historical data. This includes racial and ethnic minorities, women in certain legacy health fields, low-income groups, incredibly vital research emerging from the Global South, and rare populations like transgender people or individuals with rare diseases. We need to tie this back to our daily reality as consultants. If your strategic recommendations affect any of these groups, unmitigated AI will systematically produce worse, sometimes completely invalid recommendations for them. And frankly, our own personal objectivity as professionals absolutely does not cancel out the underlying AI's baked-in bias. So the crucial point is this. Imagine an AI-synthesized literature review tells you a new corporate intervention is highly effective, boasting a massive effect size of 0.8. You absolutely cannot blindly generalize that number. That 0.8 likely comes from a highly privileged population with fantastic baseline resources who were vastly overrepresented in the original training data. If you try to take that finding and just copy-paste it to a different demographic with completely different baseline resources, your results will be drastically wrong. The client will fail, and it will be traced directly back to our flawed research. Bias entirely undermines validity.
All right, Section 4, your bias mitigation checklist. This is your action plan. But before we even type a single word into a prompt, we always evaluate the task risk against the AI's capability. If the risk to the client is high, human oversight must be absolute.
Here are the concrete steps you must take every single time you use AI for research. This is the actual meat of our playbook. Step 1. Always ask what populations the tool was trained on to establish your baseline. Step 2. Don't just rely on the AI. You have to roll up your sleeves and diversify your sources with manual, targeted searches specifically looking for underrepresented groups. Step 3. Force the AI's hand by directly asking for explicit demographic comparisons. Make it work for you. And step 4, when analyzing data, always run subgroup analyses to explicitly test whether the findings actually generalize across all populations rather than just blindly trusting the average.
Let's move to the next slide and see how this builds into our daily prompt engineering. A naive prompt just asks, hey, generate code to test treatment effects. The AI will happily oblige, giving you an overall blended effect that completely papers over any minority differences. But a true consultant prompt, it's meticulously specific. It asks, generate code to test overall effect for white participants, effect for black participants, and p-value for interaction. You have to explicitly instruct the AI to handle diverse data and look for subgroup differences, otherwise it simply will not do it. Remember, you are the driver here. The AI is just the engine.
Almost done. Section 5, transparency as scientific rigor. When the work is actually done, here is your transparency checklist. In your final client deliverables, you must disclose the specific AI tools you used. You must explicitly state known training data limitations. Honestly, just writing a simple sentence like, this tool is trained on English language publications only goes a long way.
You must report results for all populations studied, not just that blended overall sample. And you must explicitly acknowledge the limits of how your findings can be generalized. Doing this protects you. It elevates the quality of our firm's work, and most importantly, it protects the client from making blind, expensive strategic errors.
I want to leave you with a massive mindset shift today. Sometimes junior team members think that acknowledging these limitations in a report is somehow admitting a flaw in their work. It is the exact opposite. Acknowledging and actively mitigating bias demonstrates immense scientific rigor and professional maturity. Hiding bias, ignoring it, or blindly trusting an AI tool just because it saved you an hour on a Tuesday afternoon, that is just bad science, and honestly, it's terrible consulting. Transparency proves that you are firmly in control of the technology, not the other way around.
As we wrap up this masterclass, I've got a provocative question for you to take back to your desk right now to audit your own daily workflow. Think about the main research task you currently use AI to assist with. Got it? Okay, now ask yourself, who is systematically underrepresented in its training data? Seriously, think hard about that. Find your blind spots, run your mitigation checklist, and ensure your insights remain rigorously valid. Thanks for hanging out with me today, team. Now let's get back to work, a whole lot smarter and significantly sharper than before.